Razer just dropped the new Deathadder V4 Pro. The sensor, the scroll, the switches, even the wireless itself are all new and virtually every measurable spec is up. The real question is, does it really make a difference? When the Deathadder V3 Pro launched back in the fall of 22, it was a huge change to the classic flared Deathadder shape. This time around, there are no changes to the shape, but size is going to be important here. The V4 Pro takes a few design cues from the V3 Hyperspeed, like the more pronounced spacing on the side buttons and the larger glides versus the Microsoft Clippy arrangement of the V3 Pro. But the Hyperspeed was a much smaller mouse than the V3 Pro, like a full step down in size, and the V4 Pro is, as best I can tell, a one-for-one match for the V3 Pro, so this is a large mouse. It feels like a large mouse too, even with the hand measurement of 21 by 10.5 centimeters, and even though it's still that large size, they have managed to cut weight. This black version comes in at 57 grams on my scale, down 6 grams from my V3 Pro. Keep in mind the white variant usually adds 1 gram, so pretty close to the much smaller V3 Hyperspeed and closer still to the Superlight 2 Dex. And even though they've cut weight, they've increased the sidewall strength and they've gone with a different type of plastic material. They've been spending a lot of time on Reddit and they've heard the issues where sidewall creak started to creep up on the V3 Pro over time. I cannot get this V4 version to creak no matter how hard I squeeze on this thing, but only time will tell. So the scroll wheel is now optical, the encoder, not the click-on press. They state this increases the durability by 3.3 times versus the previous mechanical scrolls. And this being optical should solve ghost inputs where you don't roll completely to the next notch and it rolls backwards and triggers an input. For being non-mechanical, this doesn't really feel less tactile on scroll to me than the V3 Pro does, even though both those mice feel less tactile to me than the Hyperspeed. The click here does feel a little better. It's got a louder and a higher pitched sound too. And the switches are all new as well. We're now on Gen 4 of their optical switch design, and this time it's not a revision, it's a full-on redesign. It's good news and bad news with these for me. They're a little lighter and they feel amazing. I think this is the closest an optical has ever felt to a mechanical switch, and you still get the benefit of not needing any debounce. The bad news is I can't stand the way these sound. They have like this high-pitched, clinky, metallic sound to them. Up until now, I thought the Dex 2 had the worst sounding switches out there. These clear that. Now that may or may not be important to you. Maybe you have a nice noise canceling headset, but I'm really not a fan of these. And that sucks because again, these feel great and the rest of this mouse from a tech standpoint is bananas. The side buttons feel great here too, and supposedly they are also optical, so I think the lone scroll click is the only real mechanical switch left in here. And I don't believe this smooth touch coating is any different from the Hyperspeed, and I couldn't tell you on the Pro because I've only ever owned the white version. The black coating definitely performs better in my opinion, unless you're just trying to match a certain aesthetic on the desk. And the sensor here is also new. This is the Focus Pro 45 Optical Gen 2. We're getting even closer to perfect here with their test showing a 99.8% accuracy at the highest DPI. This, coupled with Synapse, gives us all the stuff we're used to seeing on a flagship Razer sensor. So we still have motion sync, smart tracking that calculates liftoff distance on the fly, asymmetric cutoff so you can really dial in liftoff and landing distances, mouse rotation calibration in the event that you don't hold your mouse perfectly vertical, which you probably don't, DPI adjustment in increments of 1, and a DPI sensitivity matcher so you can clone your new mouse perfectly to your old mouse even if there's a slight DPI variance. We also now have dynamic sensitivity. This is basically a high performance mouse acceleration feature now baked directly into Synapse. Personally, I haven't fully embraced mouse acceleration yet, but what this allows you to do is to move seamlessly from low DPI to high DPI depending on how you have your curve set up. So you can run a low DPI all the time if that helps with tracking, and then when something happens that you need to react quickly to, you can cover a lot of ground by shifting to a high DPI without flinging your mouse across your path. And the dongle is also new this time around. They call this a hemisphere because I guess getting some dome from Razer didn't sound great to the marketing team. The design makes the antenna sit a little higher on the desk and it's weighted too. Feels really nice. It's not going anywhere and the cable's not going to make it tip over. You get 3 status LEDs on the front: connection status, battery life, and polling rate. If you're an 8K believer, this mouse comes with 8K right out of the box versus needing to grab a separate 8K dongle. And this mouse not only does 8K wireless, but 8K wired too. And the 8K is even 8K'er than before because their Hyperspeed Wireless has also been updated to the new Gen 2. 2. The short version is they can push latency even lower than before because packets of data used to be grouped by 4, so you'd need 4 sends before you got 1 receive back. This resulted in faster pulling, but it also needed error correction, so while their hyperspeed wireless latency was already very low, they knew that they were leaving some performance on the table. They've managed to crack this now to where it's a 1-to-1 send and receive, and in theory, this allows for lower latency, less error correction, and better consistency. According to their own latency figures, Gen 2 manages to reduce the already low latency of hyperspeed from 0.461 milliseconds to 0.291. I don't have a sophisticated test setup like Razer has in-house, but I do have an actuator and a Final Mouse XLAT device to look at click latency. I'm not expecting a huge drop in click latency though. Even on the Final Mouse ULX, we don't really see a big decrease going from 4K to 8K. But I was getting some really weird numbers on the XLAT, and turns out it's because the new switch design is on a separate daughter board connected by a ribbon cable, so soldering to the points that you need to on the main board doesn't allow for manual triggering and doesn't give accurate results. Not that it's even really a factor. I mean, I always like to validate manufacturer claims whenever I can, but Razer is pretty well known for having some pretty banger wireless. And even after that, there's a lot of talk about how important all this is in actual real-world gaming. I don't think there's a person alive that can feel the difference between 0.461 and 0.291 milliseconds. But I'm not a pro and I'm not 18 years old, so I can't personally perceive that. Maybe other people actually can, or maybe it's just placebo, but either way, Razer has achieved moving us one step closer to theoretically perfect, and I always like to celebrate breakthroughs in engineering. I certainly didn't have any issues gaming with the mouse. Technically, it felt exactly like what I'd expect from a flagship. And in spite of all the new stuff they've managed to jam in here, this mouse is actually more efficient than the last version. Battery life is now rated at 150 hours at 1000 Hz. This is up 50 hours from the V3 Hyperspeed and 60 from the V3 Pro. And even 8K got a bump too, up to 22 hours this time. And Synapse has this feature I love too, where it'll run at 1000 Hz when you're just doing everyday tasks, and then when you jump into your game, it'll go to whatever higher preset pulling rate you have. Now with all this new stuff under the hood, you would expect a bump to the price tag, and you'd be right. This mouse comes in at $169.99. That's currently $10 higher than the V3 Pro paired with the 8K dongle. I don't think this is worth the upgrade if you're currently on a V3 Pro and you're running 8K, and the size of this might be an issue for people who are currently on that hyperspeed size. Clearly, they've done some very impressive stuff with this mouse. If you're the type that always has to have the very best, Razer raised the bar with this one. But our flagships are already so close to perfect, it's really hard for me to imagine that this alone is what's going to give you the edge versus what's already out there. That's it for today. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Stay up.